FIDE 2023 World Chess Championship game number 6. This is the best World Chess Championship ever. This game does not disappoint. We have Ding with the white pieces. He is down one game in the match. He plays pawn to d4, which he also played in game number 2, and he lost that game. Knight f6 by Ian Nepomniachtchi. Knight f3. And we saw pawn to c4, though, in game number 2. And this is now a London system by Ding Liren. We're seeing a London in the World Chess Championship. There is a new ChessGoals course coming out very soon on the London. Links in the description. Pawn to c5 by Jan. This is the most aggressive way to play the position. Getting that immediate pressure on the d4 pawn, trying to make Ding play passively. He plays e3. And after c takes d4, Jan goes for this exchange, which leads to a famous pawn structure called the Carlsbad structure. That's where you see the 2 pawns on the queen side for black, and then these 3 pawns on the queen side for white, with addition of the d pawn. And then black has this pawn structure on the king side, 5 pawns, and there's just kind of the 3 pawns for white. Now we see bishop to f5. This is following about 500 games, so very common London position. c3, e6. Now bishop to b5. This is a specialty of a London expert and self-proclaimed FFL, Gadakomsky. And the idea is white wants to play knight to e5 and pressure this knight, which is pinned to the king. So it's kind of a fun, aggressive way to play it, and it's a little bit outside of the main lines. So now we see bishop to d6 by Jan. This is trying to take the bite out of white's position, offering that bishop trade. They trade. Both sides castle, and now we see rook to e1 by Ding. So if you just look at the computer, this position is very close to even. And in previous World Championship matches, we might see this type of position lead to a draw, right? There's not a lot of excitement. But these players have contrasting styles. Jan likes to play aggressive, Ding likes to play solid, and so far, this position is kind of in Ding's wheelhouse. It's a very solid position, common pawn structure with the Carlsbad. Jan doesn't have any attack at the moment, and we do see that Ding controls this important e5 square. Pawn, rook, and knight all defending it. So e5 would be one idea for black to get some play here. The other idea is to play a6, b5, b4, and play what's called a minority attack. So this is kind of Carlsbad structure 101. From this black side, you want to play e5 or minority attack. We see h6 by Jan. A bit of a rare move. We're only following one game now. It's Komsky against Marcus from 2020. A6 is more common, but the position is very close to equal still. Just very, very slight advantage for Ding. Knight to e5. Okay, we have that solid position. He's shutting down Jan's plan of e5. Knight to e7. a4. I like this move a lot. a4, it looks strange. What is the pawn doing out there? It's shutting down this plan of a6, b5. So how does Jan play for that initiative that he loves to have when Ding is trying to shut down the play everywhere? It looks like Ding controls the center. Ding's controlling the queen side. King side still up for grabs, but I would say Ding maybe if you had to pick. a6 by Jan, bishop retreats. Knight to d7. This is an inaccuracy, a small one. And the idea is Jan wants to play for e5, whether it's f6, e5, or e5 right away. But first, he needs to get that knight out of there. Queen to b6 is the engine choice, just keeping that game closer to equal, but Jan likes to play fighting chess. Okay, Ding trades off the knight and plays pawn to a5. Excellent move. This shuts down b5 completely due to en passant, right? If b5 is played, you can capture it. A takes b6. So the queen side is now under Ding's control. Queen c7 played, queen f3. And the cool thing with this move is the queen guards c3, and that allows pawn to b4. So one idea here is to play pawn b4, knight b3, and bring the knight out to c5. So Ding's looking to play queenside while controlling that e5 square. Rook fc8, rook to a3. So what Jan did was he put 2 attackers on this pawn, preventing b4. Ding plays rook to a3. A cool way to defend the pawn and renewing this threat of pawn to b4. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is Jan likes to play with the pawns. He likes to use his pawns to create dynamic play and go for the initiative. Which pawn break is Jan going to go for at this point? I think it's got to be pawn to e5. That's really the only one he's looking at. But Ding is the one that has all the fun in this position in terms of pawn pushes. He has b4. He also has g4, h4. He can play on both flanks of the board. I think Jan's sitting in this position thinking to himself, I would love to have the white pieces. Could we just spin the board around, Mr. Ding, and play the position with the colors reversed? Because it looks like you're having all the fun here. Bishop to g6 played by Jan, knight to b3. Interesting to note that Ding is not excited to push the pawns. Pawn to b4 would have been a good move, and I think Jan would have played that. And the idea with knight to b3 is the knight wants to probably head to c5. So we see knight c6, queen g3. And this is another interesting dynamic, and we've seen this before in this match. Ding goes for queen trades, and Jan always declines them. And in this case, I think Ding is taking advantage of Jan's playing style. He knows Jan doesn't want the queen trade. And let's just look at it. Jan did not trade queens, but let's look at it. This is the strongest move according to the engine. Take back, rook c7, knight c5, bishop f5, bishop e2. Now Jan gets in the e5 break, and this is close to equal. It's a slight advantage for Ding, but this is the way that Jan probably should have played it. In hindsight, he should trade queens and go for this e5 push. Instead, though, after queen g3, Jan plays queen to e7, which is an inaccuracy. And again, like we talked about, I think Ding is taking advantage of Jan's playing style in this position. Now we see h4 by Ding. Ding is controlling both sides of the board. There's not an immediate threat with h4, but at the grandmaster level, playing for control of space is really important. Rook to e8 by Jan. He is looking to play e5, I think. Knight to c5. And this is a cool move. The idea is rook to b3 can be played, applying immediate pressure to the pawn on b7. And even though knight takes a5 is in return, Ding could play rook to b6. And actually here, the position is very good for Ding. We see the knight in the area, the bishop pointing at a6. Jan does not want to sit back and just allow Ding to apply this long-term pressure. This is something that a lot of players struggle with, but he needs to play actively. He feels he needs to play actively, and he goes e5. This is the first mistake of the game. We had an inaccuracy with queen e7. This is a mistake, and let's see how Ding punishes it. Rook a to c8 would have been the best move, but the problem there is Ding's going to go b4, he's going to play h5, and he just has a comfortable long-term advantage. This gives Ding a larger advantage, but he has to prove it. Rook to b3, a mistake returned by Ding. Pawn to b4 would have been the best move. And if pawn to e4, then f3 with the idea of f takes e. So Ding misses that though. He plays rook to b3. And now knight takes a5 by Jan. Rook takes e5. Queen to f6. And rook to a3. So when the dust settles on that first set of trades, we are still even material. No passed pawns for either side. And we still have just a small advantage for Ding. Knight to c4 played. And this is a huge decision. Ding decides to grab the knight. This is an excellent move. And the idea is now we reach this endgame, knight against bishop. And we've seen this dynamic before. The bishop on g6 doesn't have a lot of active play. Notice how all of these pawns are on dark squares. f2 is a square that bishop would love to attack, dark square. And the knight is able to hop between colors, light, dark, light, dark. This is an advantage positionally for Ding. Pawn to h5 played. Slight inaccuracy again. So the players are not playing the most precise moves, but the position is a little bit complicated. Knight takes b7 would have been the top choice. But I'm wondering if just Ding is thinking practical chances. Maybe he believes that Jan has more drawing chances here. For example, if the rooks swap off, queen b6, knight d6, queen takes b2. There's no passed pawns for Ding. Rook to a5. And he does end up getting a better version of this position in the game. So maybe it was a good practical choice, but that's what the engine said he should have played. Pawn to h5, bishop to c2 by Jan. This is a mistake. Rook takes e5 was the best move, and this was missed by Jan. And there's a cool tactic at the end that is probably the part that he missed. If d takes e5, queen d8, this queen is threatening to come to d1 with check, And there's this whole idea of perpetual checks back, forth on the diagonal. So if Ding tries to win a piece, queen d1 check, king h2, queen h5 check. If the king goes back, there's a repetition. And if queen to h3 is played, there's now queen takes e5 check, picking up the knight. And actually, Jan's position is better here. So rook takes e5 would have been a cool move in that position, but he missed it. Okay, so right here, rook takes e5. Played bishop c2, knight takes b7 by Ding, queen to b6, and this is a brilliant move by Ding. His first brilliant move of the game, but there's more to come. More brilliant moves coming up. Knight to d6. There is no queen takes d6 because rook takes e8 check, picks up the queen. What a move. So Jan plays rook takes e5, queen takes e5. And this is a position where at the club level, I think it's very hard to see which side has an advantage. We do see that queen takes b2 as an idea and maybe push in the a pawn. That might be the easier plan to play from the black side. But there is this idea for Ding, knight to e8, threatening a checkmate. And if pawn to f6 is played, then there's queen to e5, forking king and rook. So watch out for knight e8. Jan plays actively though, queen takes b2, immediately hitting the rook. Rook to a5. This is the top move played by Ding. And the rook wants to head to c5 next for activity, and it's also shutting down the a-pawn push. King h7. Jan is much worse in this position. He is trying to fight back with queen takes c3 though, trying to create a second passed pawn. He'll have a and c pawns as passed pawns. If queen takes c3 immediately, this is something I was wondering. There is a cool move by white, knight to e8, like we just talked about. And if f6, you can check immediately, winning the rook, or you can grab this pawn first and then check, winning the rook. This is actually a mate in 13 moves. So king h7 was better than taking on c3 right away. And at this point, queen takes c3 is the threat. Ding misses queen to e1. Queen to e1 is a really smooth move. It defends the pawn on c3, and Ding would be ready to capture on c4 next. But instead, Ding plays rook to c5. This is a mistake, allowing queen takes c3. But we've seen this is not the most accurate game in the world, and Jan misses queen takes c3. He instead plays queen to c1 check. Queen takes c3 would have only been slight advantage for Ding. Queen to c1 check, though, that's a blunder, and that's a critical blunder. Now king h2 played by Ding. This pawn cannot be captured right away, and Ding is threatening knight takes f7, and this kingside structure is starting to collapse for Jan. f6 played, queen to g3. Ding would like to pick up the c pawn next with knight takes c4. And now Jan plays a5. I think this is a move that we can all learn from. When your opponent has the advantage, but you have a passed pawn, look to just keep pushing that passed pawn. Because we are not stockfish engines. When you have a passed pawn, it gets super dangerous in a hurry. That's the idea for Jan. Knight takes c4 played, pawn to a4. There it goes, only 3 squares away from queening. Knight to e3. Excellent move by Ding. You might be wondering, okay, well, what if a3 now? How does Ding prevent this pawn from becoming a queen? Well, here, this was not played in the game, but there is rook to c7 by Ding, creating a mate threat. And after rook to g8, Ding had to have seen this whole idea. There is knight to d5, threatening knight takes f6. Okay, well, what if a2? The king could always hide on h8, right? What if a2? Well, now, can you spot the checkmate? There's a checkmate in only 4 moves. It's knight takes f6 check, queen takes g7, and now there's this mating net with the rook check, and rook takes g8 mate. A queen sacrifice to create this checkmate. Incredible. Okay, so in this position, a3 is not a good choice. And bishop to b1 played. It's a tough position for Jan. This is a small mistake too. King to h8 would have been the best move. Okay, now rook c7 by Ding, creating another mate threat. Rook g8, knight to d5. He's going for this exact same idea that we talked about. Queen takes g7, knight takes f6, that mate sequence. King h8 played, and now rook to a7 by Ding. Now the players are finding some strong moves, and at this point, Ding is playing pretty accurately, but he needs to watch for any sort of perpetual, whether it's check here, check on this diagonal. He's got to be careful that he doesn't allow Jan to get that draw. A3 played by Jan, and this pawn is getting dangerous. Only 2 squares from queening. It's a big advantage for Ding still, but he has to play precisely. He goes knight to e7, poking at this rook. Rook f8. Now he plays d5. d5 was given a question mark by the chess.com engine during the broadcast that I was watching. But this move has a point, and these tactics are insane by Ding Liren. The commentators, which included Anish Giri and David Howell, they did not understand why d5 was played. And it looks like Jan can just simply play a2. And why play d5? This pawn is a lot slower than the a pawn. Well, Jan plays a2. I will say the best move for Jan is to play queen to b2. And after queen c7, queen to b8, trying to eliminate the biggest threat, but this is still completely winning for Ding. a2 played in the game though, and it's a blunder. And Ding got very excited coming back to the board, and he plays queen to c7. And even though the commentators looked at this move, they couldn't figure out for a long time what the solution was. Ding found it though. King to h7, this is a checkmate in 10 moves with best play. 10 moves. If you want to try to find it, go ahead. The solution is knight to g6. This opens up the threat of checkmate and winning the rook. So there's an obvious reply. Rook to g8. This is the hard move to find. If you want to pause the video and try to find it, go ahead. The move is queen to f7. Wow, wow, wow. This is threatening. Queen takes g8 check. Jan resigns here. The game is over. Ding finished it with a beautiful checkmate pattern, but let's just show what happens. Let's say queen to b2 by Jan, trying to make a queen. Queen takes g8 check. King takes back. And now rook to a8 check. Queen to b8, you could throw the queen in and try to block. Rook takes. King f7, and now rook to f8 checkmate. And the most beautiful thing with this tactic, the pawn on d5 guards the e6 square. There's no king to e6 for black. Ding saw all of this. Incredible. So now we have a tied match through 6 games. We have a rest game tomorrow, and we will be back with a recap on Tuesday for the game number 7. And check out the link in the description. If you want your game analyzed coming up, we have a live stream on Saturday, April 22nd. You can either just come and watch, or you can submit a game. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.